Hey folks, happy Saturday morning rants. At least I'm getting it done on a Saturday and not a Sunday. What I want to talk about today, I feel like there's a bunch of shit I want to talk about. Every few rants, I be wanting to get on this dude's case. This dude named Gabriel Saya, this white dude who runs this organization called Qatar that set me up years ago because I was giving him hundreds of thousands of dollars. And the minute I realized I couldn't work with him anymore and told him I wasn't going to re-grant his organization any money, him and his people came after me, set me up and all that. And he continues to operate this nonprofit, Qatar, and he just pimps out black people. Like, he has a lot of black people on his staff. I'm sure they're doing good work. But, like, his whole legitimacy comes from saying he has these black and brown people working for him, directly impacted people. And he's such a good, like, grown-up organizer that he just organizes people. So he makes you feel like you're the most important person in the world, when the truth is that he's just pimping you out for legitimacy, always crying about how his dad used to, be addicted to alcohol. I get that. I feel for you, but that don't necessarily give you legitimacy in this space. If you really want to work in partnership with black and brown people, then do that. Like, get your privilege out the way and do that. But instead, he's all about how much money can he raise, how much money can he pay himself, getting paid in multiple ways in this space. His girlfriend is Danielle Sered, who runs Common Justice, another person who's raised millions of fucking dollars. In the beginning, I remember it was costing like $30,000-$40,000 per fucking participant in her program. And the truth is that it was nothing but an extension of the district attorney's office, as far as I'm concerned. But again, I don't want to throw the baby away with the bathwater. So I'm not suggesting that the people on their staff ain't doing good work, because there's a lot of black and brown people there who are there for all the right reasons and don't even understand the kind of situation that they find themselves in the middle of. And, I don't have a lot of people in this space that I really, don't fuck with at all. Like, there's a lot of people in this space I don't like that I can still work with. Like, I'm a businessman. I work with a lot of people I don't necessarily like. But I don't really fuck with people that's causing harm. And I just can't fuck with this dude. But that's actually not what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about, if you look at my tweets in particular, you'll see a tweet I posted about the MacArthur Foundation. I spoke about the MacArthur Foundation a few weeks ago. And I told y'all, I felt like, foundations are constantly trying to hold nonprofits accountable. But this foundation has blown through a couple $100 million saying that they're going to reduce jail populations and that they're going to reduce the racial disparity inside of jails all around the country. And they picked a bunch of cities they were going to work with to do that. And they were giving huge grants, $500,000, $600,000, $700,000 to government, to get government to come to the table to try to do things differently. But I told them from the beginning, almost 10 years ago, Lori Garducki, that's her name. I know she don't fuck with me, whatever. I told her years ago, the government, when you give them money, will only behave differently until the money runs out. That's number one. You're not going to get government to behave differently in the long term, but you will get them to behave differently if they think there's some unrestricted private foundation money coming through the door to help them do some things. That's great. But if you really want to keep your foot on the necks of government to get them to show up differently, to change policy, to change staff, to move in the right direction, you got to fund the community too. And they've always been reticent to fund the community, to give the community the fucking crumbs from that initiative. And then they give government these huge fucking grants to be able to, again, show up differently. Except recently, now don't forget, I bitched about this a few weeks ago. I said MacArthur need to figure this shit out. I said they need to hold themselves accountable after blowing through $200 million. They try to take a lot of recognition for jail populations going down, except if you really look at what happened, fucking COVID made jail populations go down because government did behave differently during that time, realizing that if you keep so many people in a jail setting, more and more people are probably going to get sick, some are going to die, and government just didn't want to deal with that shit. So I'm not even so sure that the $200 million is what led to jail reductions if you look at the impact of COVID during that time. But here we are today, and I just posted an article on my Twitter account, and you'll see it, where the San Francisco District Attorney's Office, black folks, black women, are like, yo, MacArthur's withholding money from us because they're saying that we're not behaving the way they want us to behave. Nothing about this surprises me. Lori Garducki, as the leader of the criminal justice effort at MacArthur, has always been in the business of giving black people money, but also telling them how to behave. She's very condescending, very paternalistic, everything very elite. Everything that I bitch about foundations, she's the personification of. Now, just for transparency, I got money from her years ago. She gave me like $100,000 or something like that. But I know what it was. It was go away money. It was like, this nigga is going to keep putting his foot on our necks. We need to give him some money so that he could go away. And they've continued to sprinkle money around to the black people in the criminal justice reform space that they can give money to try to keep them quiet so they can actually do what they really want to do. And again, you know, the pathology of an organization starts from the top and trickles down. And she happens to be at the top. So right now, if you look at the article on my Twitter account, you'll see, and I'm not here to stand up for the DA's office. I'm not even a fan of the whole progressive prosecutor thing, because either a human being is going to do the right thing or they're not. But the idea that you're going to give a ton of money to prosecutors and they're going to show up differently, I'm just not a fan. I don't think it works. I think the system is systemic. Things are rooted in legislative language. I don't even know how much flexibility they have. Where they do have flexibility, it's usually, and discretion, it's usually in places where people shouldn't go to jail and shouldn't be arrested in the first place. So I'm not even so sure it's the DA's office versus law enforcement and the legislature. But let's put that aside for a minute. Let's assume there is a real thing as progressive prosecutors. Although the most progressive prosecutor I ever knew, Adam Foss, got ran out of our space and canceled as a black man, and never had a chance to even tell his side of the story. But that's a whole nother story, a whole nother rant for a whole nother fucking day. But let me go back to this idea that you're going to give money to the prosecutor's office and make them progressive. Let's assume that's true. And they're giving them $625,000 per blank, per year, every 2 years, whatever, to be a part of this effort to reduce jail numbers and so on. The DA and her chief of staff was like, yo, you know what? You don't want to give us money? We don't want your fucking money. You know why we don't want your money? Because we're tired of sitting in meetings where you're talking to us as if we're fucking children, as if we don't understand systemic racism. Like, you bring a bunch of white folks in the room from a foundation, or maybe some black and brown people that happen to be your minions, and you walk into an office with 2 black women leaders. I'm not sure if you understand how they got there. In fact, the potential next president of the United States had to work to get into that office. How do you think black women get into office? You think they don't work to get into office? You think they're not educated? You think they're not intelligent? You think that they don't have their own ideas? You think they don't understand systemic racism? You think they don't live through systemic racism? You think they didn't have to deal with systemic racism to get to where they are? You think when they get in their car and drive home and get pulled over by police, no matter whether they work for the DA's office or if they are the DA, that they don't deal with systemic racism? But no, you're at a foundation, you're sitting 10,000 feet up in your ivory fucking tower, and because you want to give somebody a 6-figure gift, you want to come in and tell them what to do. And here's the catch. I bet you this is the first time that the MacArthur Foundation is like, oh my God, clutch my pearls. I'm so taken aback that the black women in the DA's office feel this way about us. I thought we had such a great relationship. Well, when you're giving somebody hundreds of thousands of dollars, yeah, they're going to shake their head like a fucking bobble doll to be able to get that money, even though you're sitting in their office saying racist fucking shit. And if you don't want people to have that kind of relationship with you, and you genuinely want to do social justice work, maybe you should open the door for feedback from black and brown people when you're giving them money, to ask them, how am I showing up? That's what I do as a leader. I ask my team all the time, how am I showing up as a leader? What's working for you? What's not working for you? Can we figure out how to make this work for you? But you're not going to do that. Why? Because it's hard to teach a fucking fish that he's wet, and you don't realize how fucking wet you are, because you're just swimming along with your millions of fucking dollars that you're giving away, and you're thinking so many black and brown people really fucking love you, until the moment where you take the money away and they can finally say to you, I don't fucking love you, and you've been treating us like shit, and I feel like you're being condescending and you're being racist and you're being paternalistic. So here you have this foundation that holds itself out as super progressive, and the truth is black folks feel fucking oppressed, because to get the money to liberate black people, they have to go through you, and you're showing up as a fucking racist. So I don't know if you're black, brown, whatever. I don't even know what Lori is, to be quite honest, but it doesn't matter, because the truth is that if you operate from a place of racism and systemic racism and elitist, approach to doing the work, it doesn't matter if you're black or brown, if you're working through white supremacy to oppress black and brown leaders, especially people who've worked to get into the positions that they're in. And I've seen this shit over and over. It's inherent to philanthropy. And if philanthropy really wants to be in partnership with black and brown people to liberate them, and poor white people, then you gotta understand, when you have power, like when you have privilege, like when you carry, like when you literally are the one who benefits the most from white supremacy, if you really care about being in partnership with people who are oppressed, then you have to make yourself open to feedback about the places where you're showing up as racist. Oppressors telling oppressed people how to protest oppression is oppressive. And the idea that people who are literally being oppressive telling oppressed people how to deal with oppression is the most ridiculous fucking thing in the world. And yet foundations do this shit all the time. I mean, honestly, it almost feels like movements are where, like, nonprofits are where fucking movements go to die. Nonprofits are where fucking advocates and activists and organizers go to die. I say the same thing about government, but increasingly I realize, as someone who also engages in philanthropy himself now, like, if you don't do philanthropy in a way that matches your values, and if you don't realize that people are not telling you the truth because they want the money, and you're not opening yourself up to feedback, then you're part of the fucking problem. So MacArthur, you give all these awards to the MacArthur geniuses. Maybe you should figure out why you're not being such a fucking genius, and ask some questions, and get curious, and wonder why these two black women in the DA's office are now coming out and saying, you're part of the problem, you're just as fucking racist as anything you're out here trying to fight. I know a lot of y'all are not going to click like on this, even though you agree with it. I get it. Foundations also scare the shit out of people because they realize they can't tell the truth if they want to keep getting money. I like the foundations that allow you to tell the truth and still give you money. At Gem Trainers, I have foundations as my clients, foundations I work with, foundations that ask me hard questions about how they can do a better job. I'm not even going to name who they are because y'all are very fucking mean-spirited and oppressive, and I know y'all are going to give those foundations a hard time. But there are some foundations out there that not only hire black and brown people so they could check a fucking box, but like that genuinely hire black and brown people and give them the space to ask the hard questions of their prospective grantees about how they can do a better job. See? So I'm not early. I used to be able to do these rants at 11 o'clock in the morning. Sometimes I gotta wait. I gotta get fucking fired up. Today I went looking for a new fucking car. It's time for a new studio for the rants. Like, this fucking lease is over. And I can't believe I fucking leased a car for 3 years and only put a year's worth of miles on it. Fuck, I want my money back. Anyway, soon y'all gonna be experiencing these rants from a whole new studio, my new podcast studio. I'm just fucking with y'all. I can't even figure out which fucking car to buy. I might just go back to riding in Ubers and shit. Alright, that's what I got for y'all today. I'm about to, it's late in the evening and shit. I'm about to go upstairs and cook and fucking chill out for a minute and watch some Netflix and figure out what the fuck else gets me upset. But in the meantime, what I'm not gonna do is allow these motherfuckers to steal my motherfucking rainbow, and you shouldn't allow it either. So you can run a nonprofit, you can do good, you can do well if you're in the private sector, and you could, like, have voice. Like, don't you want to one day look back at the work you did in the nonprofit sector and be able to tell your kids, not only did I do good work, but I was able to help change the entire sector, whether it's philanthropy or nonprofit, and move it towards a place that matches with your values. And I'm not naive. I'm not running a nonprofit. I get that you got to play the game long enough to be able to make money, to have voice. But there's also other ways to build power to keep these foundations in check. Remember, we don't work for them. They fucking work for us. All that money is accumulated off of fucking oppression to begin with. And just because there's people who define themselves as fucking progressive or woke or whatever language you want to use, now being the ones doling out the money, that doesn't mean that you don't get to hold them accountable. That doesn't mean you're not the one with power. You know, people act as if power comes from the top down. Power comes from the bottom up. At any moment that the people decide they don't want the people in power to be in power, it's fucking game over. And that's everywhere. I don't care if it's the fucking United States government or nonprofits or philanthropy or Ford Foundation. I don't give a fuck who it is. The fucking minute the people decide they're no longer putting up with that shit, things change. That's how power works. Believe me, I've been there. I've done it. I've partnered with people to get policymakers to change their mind where people were fucking laughing at us and calling us naive. Why? Because we never fell for the bullshit that power comes from the top down. So if you really want to make change, keep that in mind. Don't let nobody steal your rainbow. Have a great rest of the weekend, and I'll see you next weekend. Peace.